So, Uncle, I hope you're ready for some tough questions. The first question we have is monogamy is the individual male ownership of female reproductive capacity. Do you agree that monogamy is the root cause of patriarchy and related sufferings in the form of discrimination, bias, and inequality? Uncle, you're on mute.
Personally, I don't agree with that because the opposite of monogamy is polygamy, and polygamy makes it much worse. So monogamy is not a problem. The problem is that nobody taught man that you treat people with respect and equality. So what happens in human nature and humankind, moment a person has an advantage, he starts pushing that advantage for his own benefit. And that is what causes all the mismatch in society. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Marxism. So basically what Karl Marx said, that listen, the people who have the money find it much easier to make money, and they are using us to make money, and they will never treat us with respect because we need the job. We don't have the economic strength to fight the people who have the economic power, and so we're going to be misused. Either that is human nature. So unless the human nature is changed, either there is no hope for mankind. Now, of course, Karl Marx is rather pessimistic. And what actually happened is that in a lot of Europe and other countries, the human nature did change. And because human nature changed, you find that a socialistic system of government came in. So same thing in marriage. Man has misused the strength which he had, and instead of using it to build a woman or a female, he has used to dominate the female and take advantage of her situation. So, I mean, look at it differently. For instance, now, I've seen this. I mean, I've seen this with my own eyes and it literally horrifies me. You have a maid, and a maid doesn't come for one day because of some emergency at home. And you say that, no, you did not come today, I'm not going to pay you, I'm going to cut you one day's salary. Okay, isn't that the same? Isn't that the same kind of oppression? But this is what we do. This is very common in India. And so we need to think in terms that we are not going to oppress people. So monogamy is not a problem because the solution to the other thing what you are saying, that instead of monogamy, have no marriage. So that is what a lot of people are now touting, saying, why get married at all? But then if you don't get married, you still have at a disadvantage because who looks after the child? And who's going to pay for it? And so the economic strength of man is still a reality to some extent today. So if you say that I'm not going to get married, man is in a very happy position. He walks out whenever he wants. And he leaves you with the mess. So to me, marriage is essential, but we need to teach people what marriage is and what the proper relationship between man and woman is.
Thank you so much, Uncle. So I think I can take the next question that's related to what you just said. What can we adopt from Scandinavian countries in terms of equality?
See, basically, I'm a great fan of socialism. And if you have to copy anything from the Scandinavian countries, I would say that you need to copy the socialistic structure which they have. So what happened in a socialistic structure? 50% taxation. That's the taxation in Scandinavian countries as well as in Australia and other countries like that. And with that heavy taxation, they are able to support the weak and provide all the care and need for those who are weak, but they're human beings so that they can be treated as human beings. So basically that means the economic disparity needs to be adjusted. So if I have to deal with it, for instance, in India between husband and wife, that's because the husband is earning, doesn't mean the wife has no control over the money. And you know, I'll tell you the thing that I've seen this with my own eyes. I'm not talking about 15 years back, I'm talking about this year. Husband says that the wife is working, that salary of the wife must come under my control, that I am the head of the house. I am saying if the man is working, half the money should go to the wife, so that she has the economic equality, because that's what the Scandinavian countries are doing, 50% tax. And also right from a young age in the schools, you're basically taught that everyone is equal, every human being is important. Now that has to be practiced from the leadership. So if you look at the Scandinavian, for instance, the president of the country. If the president of the country wants to buy a loaf of bread, he'll walk out into the street and go and buy one. Because I am a human being just like anyone else. In India, do you think that will happen? He needs 5 armed guards, 3 cars to go for him to buy a. He doesn't go out. So see, this whole concept that we are all equal and we need to work as equal needs to come from the leadership, from the government itself, and also in the families. It needs to be built in. So we can't do anything about the government, but at least can we do something about our families? That's the only plea I have.
Yeah, I think what you said makes a lot of sense, that change starts with you. So before we go about the government, we can at least start with us. So then there's a question related to that. As a man, how can I control bad thoughts that I have about women?
Get married is what Paul said. That's an interesting suggestion that you get married. But apart from that, see, this is a struggle I think a lot of men go through. And I think we also, I don't think any person can say as a man that he has not had that kind of a struggle. But one of the things I tell people, try and look at women as individuals and try to ascertain their needs, their feelings, their emotions, so that you train yourself to see people as people rather than sex objects. Okay. Now, it will require a lot of practice. It's not going to solve the problem overnight, but as long as you start practicing this, and whenever you catch yourself looking at a woman more from a sex angle than a person angle, immediately catch yourself. You say, oh, no, I need to understand who she is as a person. And moment you start seeing people as a person, you'll find that these kind of thoughts start reducing in your mind and slowly disappear from your mind completely. Okay. So it's the habit of seeing people as people rather than as sex objects or anything like that.
Okay, thank you so much, Uncle. So the next question we have is about religion, I think so, specifically Christianity. The person saying it's Christianity is 100% patriarchal. Do we have any women who've written books in the Bible, like John or Matthew? Are there any female saints who are celebrated?
Okay. First of all, because of the patriarchal system, most women are uneducated, so don't expect them to write. Peter wrote in very bad Greek. So Peter wrote in bad Greek, Mrs. Peter probably didn't know Greek. Okay, so that's a reality of life. But when I'm looking today, there are a lot of women who have written excellent spiritual books and written excellent material for people to study and understand God better. Okay, so you're looking at a time when women were not educated and asking, why is it that God did not use them to write? I think you men only prevented them from ever coming up in life. So you will find, see, I'm not very familiar with other religions so much, but we had the same struggle in Hinduism. And then later on, when certain freedom was given to women, you find that they also learned the Shastras and they also became knowledgeable in the scriptures and they could teach others. Okay, so this was something which is a reality of the social structure of that time. And that is why you don't necessarily see anything like that of women having written scriptures.
Okay, that was a very nice answer, Uncle. So again, this is a religion-related question. Is the burqa really a necessary? And what about Pentecostal Christians who wear all white or no jewelry? How can Christianity or other religions balance such issues?
No, you're asking, I do not know whether that question has come from a Muslim. If it has not come from a Muslim, I said you should not ask the question. But because if you're not a Muslim, then obviously it's not necessary. Okay, if you're a Muslim, you practice it for whatever reason you have. The other part of it, a tail end of the question which I kind of saw on the screen, is relevant. Should the church be practicing certain norms for women and not for men? That women must cover their head and men do not need to, and women should do this and men need not do that, and all those kind of things. Now, one of the things is that let's face the reality. In most religions, whether it is Judaism or whether it was early Christianity and things like that, there were certain restrictions put on women. Okay. But when I look at the teachings of Jesus, Jesus Christ was very clear. One is he is the only person we know in history of that time, era, to have taken women with him when he was touring the countryside and preaching. He had women going with him. That is unheard of. It was unheard of among the Greeks, it was unheard of among the Jews, it was unheard of, but Jesus accepted them. The second thing is Jesus taught that, listen, these rules are ridiculous. If you look at any of the scriptures, whether it is the Hindu scriptures or Christian scriptures, rules were basically meant to help you. It was meant to be a means of showing love to mankind, not as a means of you becoming some kind of a saint by obeying these rules. So we need to understand how those rules show love. And so that is why you find that the continuous confrontation between Jesus Christ and the religious leaders. But they said, hey, you're not obeying the rule. Jesus said, Bhaiya, I'm showing love. He said, you are obeying the rule, but you don't show love. You only show hatred and anger. And he said, please, can we start loving each other? So most of these rules are not necessary and can be done away with. But one of the things we say is that don't unnecessarily annoy people. So if a certain culture is having some norms, practice it. There's nothing wrong in that. If you can get rid of them, fine. So wearing white and doing all that is totally unnecessary.
Okay. Okay. So when we talk about rules, maybe we can talk about the police also here. Why do you think the police support only women in a case of harassment? Because it seems like women have an advantage in the Indian justice system, and by extension, they can easily file for false accusations. What do you
Did a
think?
man ask a woman or a woman?
Sorry, what? I didn't understand.
Did a man ask that question or did a woman?
I'm not sure, uncle. The
You're not
question
sure.
came
Okay.
anonymously.
Let me tell you something. It doesn't matter. It appears because of all the news reports that women are the ones who get the support. In actual fact, they don't. And there's a reason for it. And it's a reason all over the world. It's not an Indian problem, it's an American problem, the problem worldwide. When the police respond to help from a woman, they come and they start taking action, and the woman invariably backtracks. You know, women say, no, that's my husband. No, I'm sorry, I withdraw my complaint. So they find that they are left highly embarrassed when they take action. Okay, now even in a recent case where we were involved, a woman went and filed a complaint to the police, and the husband was called to the police station. And then she was very happy that a FIR or something had been filed. She went after 3 days or 4 days, they said, no, we didn't file anything. We spoke to your husband, we spoke to you, that's fine. So that's all that they really do. Now, what the complaint which is coming is genuine, that just like man misused his muscle power and economic power to oppress women, now women are misusing the law to oppress man. Okay, but that's a reality. That can always happen because laws were made to protect the women, and the women are now using that law to harass the men and file unnecessary cases, especially when the woman has already renounced the husband and started having a love affair, and then she can do quite a bit of damage. So this is something which is true, but we need to trust our police and our legal system that they will be able to see through this and they'll be able to give justice, though it may create a certain amount of harassment for you at that time.
Yeah, okay, that makes a lot of sense. This is a question on priority. What are gender roles? And because almost as much as our sex differentiates us, aren't we primarily individuals? Therefore, shouldn't our roles be based on gender or the individual's capacities?
You want the individual's capacity, you see. See, I don't like to term gender roles because some men, I mean, you look at, in India, they say women are the best, should cook, but the best cooks in the world are men. So what is the gender role? Okay. All the chefs are men. So there are no roles as such, but let's understand that each person do what they are suited to do according to their temperament, according to their skills, according to their abilities. So I personally am not very comfortable with women joining the army and things like that. Essentially because women's strength is being preservers, not going around killing people. And now when you're asking them to take on a role which they are not normally suited for, in large numbers, I have problems. There may be individuals, like I think there was one lady in Kerala who killed off about 7 people from her family before they caught her. So there may be some women who are different and who are fit to be in the army. So I have no problem, take them. But trying to challenge women to behave like men and challenging men to behave like women, I think is crazy. So when I'm saying gender role, there are some roles obviously which are gender specific, like a man cannot be a mother and a woman cannot be a father and things like that. But there are a lot of other roles which can be shared. And there are some roles where men are better and women, some roles where women are better. So the president of Harvard got sacked for making this kind of a statement because they were insisting on gender equality. But the fact is that there are some roles where men are better, some roles where women are better. So let each person do what comes naturally to him and evaluate them on their commitment to the work, evaluate them on their humanity, and not necessarily on the role they're playing.
Okay, so actually there's a follow-up question to that. Um, you mentioned how roles were different. So to what extent, for example, this person spoke about how housework is something that's commonly delegated to women. So how do you like bring that out as something that is for both men and women?
See, to a large extent, again, as I said, because individuals are different, it depends on the two individuals and they should come to an agreement. So now, basically, it works like this. If the woman is under pressure, the man helps. If the man is under pressure, the woman helps. Okay. So it's not a question of these are airtight pockets where you cannot come in. Okay. Now, obviously, if you have no skill, you don't get into it. You're only going to make things worse. But where you have a skill, you can. So normally now, for instance, what I'm finding more and more in today's world, they kind of make an agreement. You will do the dishes, you will take out the garbage, you will do this, you will do that. I'm not very comfortable with that, but it is good because it makes it easy. You know exactly what you're supposed to do. So you can have a kind of a delineation of duties, but be ready to step in when the other person is not able to deliver. Don't say that's your job. Okay. See, remember, we are all leaders. And as a leader, it is my job to see that everyone can do their job. Okay.
I think you cleared up my own question about how roles work in the house, like familial duties. How do you separate them between? Because I've seen lots of men who would, say they won't wash dishes because that's a woman's duty. So I'm really grateful you answered that question. There's a slightly more serious question. Why are we so comfortable forgetting about male child abuse survivors?
Yeah, that's a fact. I'm not comfortable. See, the child abuse today in India is so phenomenal, it's unbelievable. Grandparents abuse their children. See, earlier in my young days, it was uncles, aunts, and things like that. Today is not uncles, aunts, it is parents and grandparents. So where are we? And it is both male, female, both of them are at the receiving end. Okay. So we need to, in fact, we generally blind ourselves. I like the way the question was worded. Why do we blind ourselves to this? So once when I spoke on this child abuse, sexual abuse of children, at least 2 persons came to me after the meeting, literally with tears in the eyes and says that we were victims, but we can't talk about it and nobody talks about it. It is a taboo subject. So the more we talk about it, I think it will come out more into the open. And we need to give helplines which work. Unfortunately, in India, most of the helplines don't work. But if, like in US and all, for instance, the moment you go to school, doesn't matter what age, you may be 3 years old or 4 years old, you're given a helpline. And you're taught how to use that helpline. So that if anything happens to you, either in the school or outside the school, you call that helpline. These kind of things can be done. And instead of complaining about the government, maybe we should think of setting up our own helplines, where we as a group can say that, okay, we are available, we can try and help you if you get into trouble. Because mind you, one of the reasons why people don't want to get involved is legal. You're going to be facing the cops, you're going to be facing the court, you're going to be having court hearings, and you're going to get involved in that. So we need to be willing to be making that sacrifice, and we give our number and say, please call us in case anything happens.
I think laws for child abuse already exist, that if you see it happen, you have to report it. But like you said, people are just not willing to do that extra effort of reporting it, even if they know it's happening. Someone has asked, do you feel that the education system itself influences sexism or creates sexism?
I won't say so. In India, anyone can do anything. So whether you're male or female, you're free to do what you like. And what I like about the Indian system and even US, you can choose that if you're a girl, you can say, I don't want to do economics and things like that. I'm quite happy to do home science and things like that. So you're given a choice. You're not stereotyped. And I think if a boy decides that he wants to do home science, I think they may get a bit of a shock. But I don't think the rules do not permit it. So I don't see that kind of gender bias in the education or in the recruitment system. I'll tell you what happened, for instance, when my daughter applied for admission to computer maintenance. Instead of doing computer science, she did computer maintenance. So the college said, sorry, we do not take girls. So I was told that this is what the college has said. So I flew down from wherever I was traveling. I flew down and I went and met the head of department. I had a long chat with him. And for that year, they admitted 4 girls. Now he said that we don't admit because they have to go to places and repair computers and they have to do a lot of practical work. So they said that we don't take girls because they can't travel. I said, what do you mean? That today girls are on scooters traveling all over the place. So we need to probably, in some areas where there is a discrimination, we need to go and argue.
Okay. Because you brought up your own experience about that, someone else has asked how she wants to, I think, convince her parents to not be so sexist because she doesn't want to get married immediately. She wants to get a job first. So what advice would you have to give her?
Frankly, it is a very difficult situation because, as I said, in the Indian culture, the parents feel that their responsibility is to get the daughter married, full stop, nothing else. And so they're not going to permit you to not get married. That is one. The second problem is you need to also take a decision whether you are willing to stay single all your life or are you going to get married. Why I say that? Girls who wait till they're 27, 28 to get married, if for any reason they are not able to find a partner immediately, they don't get married. And I've seen a lot of these cases where people are in the early years, they say, no, I want to do this, I want to do that. And finally, they ended up not being able to get married, and then they get very discouraged, or they marry anything in sight and make a mess of their lives. So it's a bit of a difficult choice, and a choice you'll have to take, but there's no way you can convince your parents, okay? So you need to be willing to take a stand. And you need to find people who will support you in that stand. Otherwise, it'll be difficult.
Yeah, I think sexism is a community effort, right? It's not really a
It's a social issue.
individual.
It's a
Yeah,
social issue. It's not a corporate issue. It's a social issue. In
exactly.
fact, see, the corporate issues are minor. The social issues, what is really killing the girls. And so the social issue, what needs to be addressed.
So then there's actually a very nice question. Which is the best archy? Patriarchy, matriarchy, biarchy? And would it make sense to have a family without a benevolent leader who is overseeing for the family?
See, there has to be one leader. Okay, you can't get away from that. So basically, what happens, the leader is the one who creates dialogue and helps you come to a group decision. If there is no leader, then it tends to become very chaotic. Now, that leader can be a man, it can be a woman, depending on who's better at it. So, normally, because we are coming from a patriarchy, so normally the leader is a man. But I know a lot of men who have happily handed it over to the women. Okay. Now, specifically, like if you look at my house, there are a lot of areas my wife decides. I don't even put my nose into that, it'll get cut off. And a lot of areas which she has said, you take look after it, I'm not getting into it. Okay. So each is doing what is according to their strength. So that place which she's looking after, she decides and she tells me that is what we are doing. Okay. So she becomes number one there. The place which is in my control, I decide. And she becomes the number two there. So it's a shared leadership. And it comes naturally if you are working together as complementary leaders. So I presume by Bayaki said that both leads. See, the thing about two leading is when there's a difference of opinion, you end up in confusion.
Mm.
So there needs to be very clearly demarcation who's leading where.
Mm.
Or let a man lead or let a woman lead everywhere. But let a man have the freedom to give his suggestions and a woman to give her suggestions depending on who's leading.
Mm. Yeah, actually, someone commented about how if there aren't any of these archies, it would be anarchy. So,
Exactly.
so that's a very sense. It's very relevant thought. Another question was why is it that a boy can go out at any time whereas a girl can't? You may say it is because of safety, but now in this generation there are always people to come forward. Then why is there still this partiality?
Basically, the fact is safety is a big issue which parents have in mind. And not only parents, guardians. Like if you're staying in a hostel, they are worried that if something happens, they are going to answer for it. See, the reality is in India, if you look at it, violence is going up. It is just skyrocketing. And part of it, I feel, is because of what Vandana Shiva said, that men are finding themselves dysfunctional and not able to dominate the way they could. And economic power coming also to women. So the men are literally going out of control and they are killing, throwing acid, doing all kinds of things to attack women. So in that kind of an environment, both guardians as well as parents are a bit nervous. Now in my time, for instance, if you look at my children when they grew up, there are very little restrictions. They could walk from wherever they want and nobody ever bothered. Today, when I was talking to some of my younger people in my church in Hyderabad, and he was saying, Uncle, you don't know, today's world is different. I cannot let my girl go out the way like you used to let your child. Because, when my daughters were roaming around, these were the companions to roam around with them. So now they are saying, you let us do all that. But now we cannot let them do all that because the world is very, very different. There's a lot of frustration. Now, some women are saying this is discrimination. I am not very certain. I won't call it discrimination. I would say that they're trying to be sensible.
Okay. Actually, I can relate to what you said because even when I was much younger, I used to be able to go around wherever I wanted to at whatever time. But now it's a lot like stricter. It's a lot scarier even to do that. So yeah, I can really relate with what you said. Another question we had was about divorce. After a divorce, it seems that a man can live however he wants, but a woman can't do so on her own because society is very judgmental towards them. Why is it that? Why is that the case?
True. And what she says is very, very true. It's a challenge. And so we need to provide support. So we have got organizations that provide the support to women. I'll tell you, simple things like even getting renting a apartment is not easy. The moment the apartment owner knows that you are a divorcee, they don't want to give it to you. So all those kind of problems come. Secondly, the problem comes about the children. So you have the children, so how do you work and maintain the children? So that becomes a real issue. So you can't take high-paying jobs and give your children the kind of support which a man can probably do, because he'll get his sister or a mother or somebody to come and look after the children. The girl, on the other hand, her parents will write her off. The parents say, how dare you divorce your husband? And the parents will not come to support. They will not come to give you any help. So you're on your own. So the reality is, in today's Indian society, if a woman divorces the husband or goes through a divorce, she's literally on her own. Nobody's going to support her. And that is the reason why I am finding now a lot of women are staying with their husbands till the children have completed education. Then they're kicking them out of the house. They think that we don't need to undergo the torment any longer. We had to do it for the sake of the children, but now we don't have to. But as I think today, with so much of online jobs coming, see, a lot of women who have been divorced and were separated from the husband. My daughter worked in HR, so she's been knowing how you can get jobs. So she's been advising them and using online jobs. A lot of them are able to stay at home and earn enough money to provide their children a reasonable education. Now, society may condemn you, but you need to be willing to take up the challenge and do it.
Okay. So you spoke about taking up that challenge. So there are now many women who are speaking out and fighting for their rights. And so how do you think that women can do can take such actions even as they have such a society that goes so much against them that it's almost become anti-feminist? So
I
how do
know.
you talk about that?
See, whenever you're taking an unpopular stand, you are going to face all kinds of issues. Okay, you're looking at man-woman issue. Let me give you something much simpler. When I was working in the railways, one policy, very simple policy I had, never say lies. Okay, so I report the truth. So the headquarters calls me and tells me, see, Mr. Lee, you don't have to report all this. Please hide these. So you need to be, I said, no, I don't say lies. No, the whole organization was annoyed, saying that the statistics of the department is going down because I say the truth. So that's the kind of position women are in. So you do something which is right, and then you will find that everyone rejects you, and people will condemn you. And then you are struggling of how to manage. Okay, so what is the question again? Can you just repeat the question?
The question was that when a woman speaks out or fights for
Yeah,
her rights, she's mocked. So how do you
exactly.
what do you do with that?
Don't worry about it. See, just like I stood saying, I'm not going to say lies, whatever happens. You can shoot me, but I don't say lies. So the woman needs to stand. But see, what happens, see, I'll tell you again a similar example. I tell people, if your boss asks you to be corrupt, don't say, I am an honest man, I will not be corrupt, you'll get sacked. So what you do is, you tell the boss, we don't need to be corrupt. I will get the work done without corruption. And you need to be able to get the work done without corruption. Because ultimately the work has to be done. So same thing here. Don't be aggressive. Stand for what is right. Stand when people misbehave with you. But don't be too aggressive so that people start disliking you. So one of the things you need to do, especially when you are in a weaker position, is you need to get friends. And if you need to get friends, you should not be aggressive. The more aggressive you are, the less friends you have. So speak out rationally, but don't make a crusade, but make sure nobody takes advantage of you.
Okay. Actually, I found that what you said is very in contradiction to the next question. That
Yeah.
is that the Bible tells women to keep quiet in church. Paul also says that women should not have any power in the church. So what do you think about like women preachers and
See, I
pastors?
thought that this was more of a neutral platform, so I didn't get into the Bible and things like that. But what people don't realize is the Bible is very, very cultural. Okay. So people all will talk about the women, they don't talk about slaves. The Bible says very clearly, slaves obey your masters. So I ask these same people who ask these kind of questions. The Bible didn't say slavery is wrong, so why don't you keep slaves? Okay. So just because the Bible doesn't say slavery is wrong doesn't make slavery right. So the Bible is very cultural. So what the Bible is saying in that particular culture, in that situation, there are, in that particular situation which Paul was addressing, he was saying that the women need to not get out of hand. Okay. Now, the fact is the same Paul wrote in other part of the Bible, he said that women prophesy. That means women speak in the church. And you'll find that the way in which the thing has been translated into English is very misleading. It says that the elders or deacons should be like this, and then says their wives, but actually the word is not their wives. The word is actually deaconesses. Okay, so a lot of this has become influenced by translations. And we need to understand that what the Bible gives are not rules. The Bible gives you values and what is going to show love to people. Now, unfortunately, as I said, mankind used muscle power and economic earning power to oppress women. Now, they're using some archaic words in the Bible to oppress women. Because see, they don't want to share or try even servant leadership. They want leadership by power. Okay. So there are a lot of things in the Bible which a lot of these people don't obey actually. They face so many things. For instance, the Bible says very clearly, Christ died for us that we who live should no longer live for ourselves. Tell me how many Christians follow that? So they follow what they like. Women keep quiet in the church. We have prophetesses right in the Old Testament. We have prophetesses in the New Testament. We have the prophetesses of the Philip the Evangelist's daughters. We have prophetesses right through the Bible. But people will only quote that one verse which comes in an obscure passage. So that is again, as I said, men taking advantage and trying to dominate and put down women.
Okay, okay. So a related question, Jesus didn't love or marry anyone in the Bible. Why? Is it because women didn't love him, or rather was it because he was not loved because of how virtuous he was? And in that connection, is love bad?
Love is not bad, marriage is good. The Bible, I mean, all religions encourage it, and so we also encourage it. So we are not for or against marriage as such. But one of the things which we do teach is that each person has his calling. So if you feel called to be unmarried, remain unmarried, there's no stigma in it. And if you feel called to be married, go ahead and get married, there's no stigma in that. But please make sure you get married only once, not twice. And Jesus Christ had a specific role to fulfill, and he felt about fulfilling that role, marriage would not work, especially since he knew he was going to die very early in life. And so marriage was not the right place for that.
Okay. I'm not sure how to reword the question, so I'll just put it directly in the chat and you can take a look. Child abuse victims get addicted to porn, substance abuse, and they also get abusive, and because of which they end up abusing women. This is how they gain control, and this is like, I guess, a cycle is probably what they meant to say. Did the Bible talk about child abuse or sex abuse? Because all we know is about Joseph's story of running away from temptation.
He basically gave some protection. There were some rules giving protection to women from abuse. But this is a fallacy, to just think that because a person has had child abuse or experienced child abuse, therefore he continues in misery. Now, I may not have been a victim of child abuse, but definitely a victim of physical abuse, being thrashed, tennis rackets broken on my back, and I don't know what not. But then I did not continue that violence. Not even when I was an alcoholic for 14 years of my life, I did not continue that violence. So to think that because one person has gone through this, he will go through that, I don't necessarily agree. But what they are saying, see, I had one case in Hyderabad where the person was abused as a child, and because of that, the sexual orientation of the child changed. So when the child was trying to maintain his sexual identity and was struggling with that, and he couldn't. So finally he committed suicide. So that is really what you're asking. So what happens is that because of the sexual abuse I've experienced, my sexual identity has got confused. And then when I'm trying to live by my sexual identity, I'm not able to. And he committed suicide because he went for counseling, but whatever it is, that counseling failed. So it is a reality, I agree, but it's not necessarily a rule that just because you have been abused, you're going to become a victim. That's not necessary. And see, what is actually perpetual? What I find is perpetual is muscle power and economic power gives you a dominance. And trying to break that is proving very, very difficult in these countries like India. The Europe was able to break it. Even USA is not broken it, mind you. US is a mess. Economic power dominates and the poor suffer. But in countries like Europe and Australia and New Zealand, you find that they've been able to break that. And that continuously perpetuates. So a person who has been poor, when he becomes rich, doesn't become generous. He repeats the same thing which the oppression which he went through, he inflicts now on others.
Okay. So there was actually a question about the other side, about whether you think abuse victims and rape victims should get reservations in jobs and promotions.
I'm dead against reservations and promotions. I have no problem in reservations in jobs. Because after all, if a person dies when he's working for the government, we give the spouse a job, we give the son a job, we give someone a job. I have no problem in giving a jobs. But for me, more than job, what needs to be done is counseling so that the bitterness is not carried forward. Because if you carry that bitterness forward, it's that bitterness which is going to destroy you, not the lack of a job. So we need to deal with that bitterness. So we need to go through some psychiatric counseling to deal with that. And if the government provides that, that will be great.
I don't know how soon government providing counseling will happen, but I think you summed it up very nicely, that counseling is really, really required. So maybe we can wrap up with the second last question. We live in a society that is sexist. We may not be able to change society overnight, but where do we start? What are the things we can do to bring about this change?
See, first of all, start practicing servant leadership in your life. Start getting involved with the needs of the weaker section of the population, whether it be orphans, whether it be widows, whether it be, within your house. See, it starts with us. So I need to set up a proper democracy within the house. And I'm not saying abdicate your leadership, but listen to people. See, one of the tragedies in India, nobody listens to the young people. Nobody listens to children. So you start doing that. Try it, listening to your child, 3-year-old child, 4-year-old child, whatever it is. Listening to people and honoring them. And once we start practicing this, in our communities, look for the widows and the orphans, the maids, the people who are in the weaker economic structures. See how we can be a blessing to them. Because we need to be the bankers for them. When they run into financial difficulties, we are the ones who need to come in and see that we can bail them out. So things like that. So once you start doing that as a lifestyle, you will find that you are becoming an influence, a positive influence on society. and you are treating women well, you're giving them respect, you're giving them encouragement, and all kinds of things will start happening.
Okay, I'm so sorry. So there is a last slightly strange question for me. Okay, for me it's strange. Men want to date promiscuous women, and women also choose men with many partners. Purity comes off as sort of boring, and this person is saying it's instinctual because aren't we all naturally non-monogamous?
It's very interesting that
Yeah.
most women are monogamous and most men are not. Okay. So this is the mismatch which I find that many women are not aware of. So they don't understand the mindset of the man, and then they start taking him seriously and land themselves in difficulties and problems. So this is something which is true if I take man as he is. But then we need to train man, like just like you train a dog so that he behaves himself and not creates problems all over the place. Both men and women need to be trained so that they behave in a proper manner. Now, this training used to be originally given by the parents. Today, some of the parents are abdicating it, leaving it to the school or the college. And as a result, we are having a big mess where the men see my ability to attract a woman as a kind of a victory, as a notch which I can get, and they keep track on that and things like that. So if they've been taught by their parents to treat women with dignity and to see women as people, this would not happen. But unfortunately, they have not been taught by their parents, and so this problem carries on. So I won't say that this is just because it is natural, it's right. See, it's natural for all of us. I think when we were children, we'd have all stolen guavas from our neighbor's guava tree and things like that. That was natural to us, to go there and steal one or two fruits from our neighbor's tree. But that doesn't make it right. And so when we grew up and when we learned better, we stopped doing that. But somehow, nobody taught us to treat women with respect. And most often what happened, they grew up in a house where women were not treated with respect. Women were downtrodden, their own sisters and the mother. And so they had nothing to learn, so they just continued the same thing. So we need to stop that. We need to take control of our lives and see that we are a blessing.
Okay, I'm so sorry, Uncle. One more question's come in, and I think it's very interesting. What is the relevance of the Believe Me movement and the Me Too movements in society?
What exactly is the Believe Me movement? I don't know.
Actually, I'm not familiar with the Believe Me movement either, but maybe you could
Me
comment.
Too, I know that I have also been in the same situation. Okay. So basically what happened to the Me Too movement, the women are afraid to speak out. When things went wrong and when they underwent some kind of abuse or harassment, they were afraid to speak out. So now the Me Too movement has given them a voice. See, there is a kind of courage in numbers. So if I know that there are others who will stand with me, I'm more willing to speak out. And so the Me Too movement has given people a voice. Now this has been more so in US, but even in India, it is slowly catching on.